Okay, here we are. North Face athlete Zach Miller in the studio here. Zach, how you doing ahead of Hardrock?
I'm good, Dylan. How are you?
Great. We were just joking about how a little different from the last time we did this. You had a fresh hole in your stomach, still on the fence as to whether or not you were going to be able to start. Last year, what does it feel like 12 months later to finally be back? And it seems like, not to jinx it, knock on wood, all systems go for Friday.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels a lot less stressful. I was pretty stressed out last year with all that was going on with the surgery and trying to figure out if I was going to be allowed to race or not.
Yeah. So we don't need to obviously rehash the whole story, but one thing I would love to have you talk about is obviously like the way the race played out for me as a fan. I'm like, dang, what if Zach was in that race? Because Ludo ultimately broke the course record, both clockwise and overall. He won by 3 hours. And so he wasn't really pushed. So I don't know, maybe first question is, do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about if like, what if I was in the race and how much you guys may have been able to push each other?
No, honestly, not too much. I just wasn't in it. So it wasn't an option for me. So I didn't spend too much time thinking about it. I think I was just really happy for Ludo when he had such an amazing day. Like he said, he had the perfect day. He actually kind of told me that he wouldn't come back this year because he had a perfect day and it's not possible to have another one. But I'm not surprised to see him on the start list, and it's great to have him here. I'm glad he came back. But yeah, I didn't really think about it too much. I was mostly just really happy for Ludo.
Yeah, it was such an awesome performance. Do you come in with like a different psychological edge though after that disappointment? Because I mean, just recollecting our conversation before Hardrock last year and all the training you had put in, you were so fit, so ready, so focused. And then to kind of have the rug pulled out under you, does it give you like maybe a little bit of a psychological, like, I don't know if anger is the right word, but maybe just like an edge to bring into this year?
I think it just gives like maybe a little extra flair, a little extra piece of motivation, but not like, I don't think as much as some people maybe think. Yeah. I think for me is like, I don't know. I kind of like do things and then I move on to other things. I'm not really a person that misses things a lot or stuff like that. So I think last year was just kind of like, well, that's life. I didn't get to do it. It's a bummer. And then we just kind of went on. Sure, it's a cool storyline this year. And yeah, it's in there. It's in the back of my mind. I do think it's a bit of extra motivation. I won't deny that, but I don't know if it's quite as big of a thing as some people might think. It's not necessarily like I woke up every morning for the past 365 days thinking about that.
Just with like the Hardrock logo on a bulletin board and you'd like throw darts at it.
Yeah.
Well, we're very excited to finally see you on the start line and have your opportunity that has been a long time coming. But after last year, after the appendix surgery, it seems to me like you then started dealing with a bit of knee pain that ultimately sort of put you down for the rest of the 2024 season that I know you've been working through ever since. So maybe share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have, I actually had knee pain that summer training for Hardrock, but I didn't really know what it was. And it wasn't really stopping training. I was actually training really well. It was just more kind of like, oh, that's annoying. And that's like really angry when I like finish a big hard day, but then it recovers. So yeah, I didn't really know what it was, so I didn't worry about it like too much. Closer to Hardrock, I also developed a bunch of probably like patella tendon pain and I think maybe both my knees. And after coming out of surgery, all of that just kind of got really, really bad. Like I was training, I thought I was going to go like try to do like Nolans or jump in Leadville. Leadville was actually the thing I was eyeing the most. We even went out to the course. I started reconning some of the course. But then it was just pretty clear that my knees were just not having it. So yeah, I jumped on the gravel bike. I gravel biked for a while. I didn't know what was wrong until I finally went and saw some doctors and got some answers. Found out like my right knee doesn't track correctly. It's shifted. My kneecap is shifted, so that's created a lot of like wear and tear in my right knee. So finally had answers. They weren't really good answers. They were pretty intimidating. But I went to the Steman Clinic in December, and Dr. Hackett cleaned out my right knee, did what he could to help me out. And then it was pretty rough going for a while. I was actually like finishing runs, telling my girlfriend that like I didn't know if I could keep doing this, like meaning, competing at a high level. But then over time, I did a mix of Nordic skiing, uphill skiing, cycling, and running. And finally, by the summer, I hit a really good groove and was able to train very well. But there's always still some feelings in my knee, always a thing I have to keep an eye on, and always some question marks, especially over these long haul races of how it holds up.
So how do those overhanging question marks impact psychology coming into the day? Because the Hardrock course is a course that does elicit some intimidation also. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, in some ways, getting into Hardrock, it was like, well, because at the time when my knees really hurt, it was steep up and down that was like the worst. And so it was like, well, I'm kind of signed up for the worst possible race for my condition. But then actually over time, as they improved and as I got out to Colorado and trained, I was like, actually, they almost like the mountain rhythm with like you're just always changing between like muscle groups and how you're using your body. And some of it's actually hiking and a lot of it's low impact. Granted, the descending is pretty high impact.
Yeah.
But I actually found my body seemed to like the mountain terrain.
Yeah.
So yeah, psychologically going in, the one thing I have to lean on is I've talked to Dr. Hackett multiple times, and he's expressed to me that I'm okay to run. He's like, it's funny. He's like, you can't make your knee any worse.
Yeah.
So he tells me I could have a lot of like comfort in that. Like I can't, I basically can't mess it up any farther.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing. I don't go out there feeling like, oh no, am I like doing myself a disservice here? It's just a matter of kind of like managing it and strengthening it. And I think it's got a lot. It actually feels now better than it did like last year. And actually through the training, it's just, I know what's wrong with it now. So it scares me a bit.
Okay.
But where last year I didn't know. So psychologically last year it was like I didn't know. I didn't have that fear, but I just kind of like crossed the fingers I would make it. Just like it did in training. This year I know, and even though the knee feels like it's in a better spot, I know what's going on in there, and so that is scary. But yeah, I think I've developed a bunch of strength, and like I said, training went well, and we're gonna give it a good go on Friday, hopefully, and see what happens.
Hell yeah. All right, let's talk about that in a sec. But I'd actually be interested to hear more about Steadman to the extent it feels like a fun thing to talk about, because for those who don't know in the audience, right, like the Steman Clinic is known for being the place where high-level athletes go to get treatment from the best doctors. Yeah. Say a few words about your experience working with Steadman.
I mean, Steadman's a well-oiled machine. I was very impressed. I've been in other like surgeries and things. And granted, I did my Haglund surgery years ago in Pennsylvania, and I had a really good experience with my surgeon there, Dr. Crispell. He was great. But I did notice a difference in like just the overall process of like working with the staff at that hospital versus Steadman, where Dr. Crispell was great and understood me as an athlete, but he had to kind of like jump in and like, when like the people were maybe freaking out that my pulse rate was so low or trying to prescribe certain drugs coming out of surgery, he would kind of jump in and be like, oh no, like don't give him that. Like, or like, oh, he's, or he might be like, oh, he's like fine. His pulse should be like 45 or whatever. And in Steadman, I think they're used to elite athletes, and I was not such a unicorn in there. And they were just like very smooth, very professional. Like I felt very well taken care of. And yeah, it was just really impressive. Like everything from like the care to me to like the health insurance process, like navigating that, it was all just like flawless.
Awesome. So coming back to where you are now, I think it's true to say that you haven't really raced an ultra since Trans Gran Canaria last year. Earlier this spring, there was a lot of excitement that your name showed up on the Canyons 100K list, but then you ultimately didn't start. So we'd love to hear the story about that DNS at Canyons. And overall, just like coming back to the long distance at Hardrock. I mean, that's like kind of like jumping in the deep end. So where your head's at with regards to returning to the distance at what you could consider to be one of the hardest courses.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's returning to the distance in a race setting. In training, you kind of never leave the distance. Like you're like, I'm a high volume guy. So yeah, I guess since I didn't race Canyons, I haven't tested the knee at like those long race distances. I have tested it in training for like, some big days, not 100K, but some hefty days. And yeah, not starting at or I guess first to answer that, like coming back in, yeah, it's a little funny, but I've been here before. I did it years ago at Andorra after my Haglund surgery. And I think even though you don't have the recent race experience, you take confidence in what you've done in training and you're like, okay, these things point to the potential for a good race. And so you take comfort in that. In terms of not starting at Canyons, I guess just as I was making my season, when I realized that my knee was all messed up, I really thought that, like I said, maybe like the steep up and down races might not be the ticket. Like I questioned if I'd be able to be here at Hardrock. So I said, hey, if I come back from this knee thing and my knee doesn't like steep up and down, well, then Western States is kind of the opposite, so maybe a runnable race like Western States would be a good backup plan B. So sort of Western States was in my mind as we could try to make that a plan B. We could go to Canyons. That'll also be a runnable race. And if we go to Canyons, I just figured it could tick a lot of boxes because it could be if I had a good day, I could come out. If I had a good day, I could come out with a UTMB qualifier, a Western States golden ticket, and a highly competitive race, which is like what I'm always after, or what I'm often after. So it just ticked a lot of boxes, made a lot of sense. I was eyeing it. I was training in Bend, doing like a bunch of runnable stuff mixed with skiing, even doing like some heat training, getting ready to see if it could happen. But then I registered, we got so close to driving down. But to be honest, my hip had become cranky. And the knee was still like, I think it wasn't as good then as it is now. And in the end, like my girlfriend just told me about this game she used to play growing up that they called Stupid or a Trick. And you had to describe a scenario and decide if it was stupid or a trick. And we decided that going to Canyons would be stupid, taking our time, building up and figuring out how to do good hard rock would be a really great trick.
Heck
so
yes.
we bailed on Canyons, and now we're here at Hardrock. And in hindsight, I'm very happy with that decision and very glad Jess taught me about stupid or a trick.
All right. Shout out Jess. Awesome. So then coming back to the training, you saying that, even though you haven't run a long ultra in a while, you've been putting up numbers, and I've been looking at your Strava. And I recall last year in our conversation, you talking about how you were emphasizing the vert stuff. It seems like you've been kind of doing the same thing coming into Hardrock this year. Share a little bit about the training philosophy, what you've been emphasizing to set yourself up.
This year has really felt a lot like just round 2, which has been very interesting, which is almost makes me want to well, we'll see on this weekend how it goes. But if it goes well, maybe I want to repeat this method. Of last year just felt like a big dress rehearsal. And this year basically just felt like, you know, how like you do something the first time and it feels really hard. And then you do it the second time, it doesn't feel quite as hard. That's what and that's like not to brag or anything, but that's just honestly what it felt like. I felt like I did very similar training. I tweaked it a little bit. Like the early stages had a lot of like cycling and biking, and, you know, I was playing around with the buzzword of heat training, you know, and whatnot. But a lot of the nuts and bolts of it, especially once my knee did better and better, became very similar last year. I was in bed, I did the prep work in bed, then I went to the springs, I hunkered down and went to town on my usual training things of basically what we call Emma, Cameron Cone, and Pikes Peak. Yeah. And, you know, hit the steep stuff. Changed maybe a little bit. I did say to some people, I was like, you know what? I've heard that Jim says you need a lot more mountain legs for Western States than people think. And I said to myself, I wonder if it's similar for Hardrock. Everybody always thinks you just have to hike. I was like, I wonder if you need more running legs for Hardrock than you think.
If the opposite is true.
Yeah, like you always neglect the thing that doesn't seem obvious, right? Like the thing you think you don't need, you neglect it, and maybe you need more of it than you think. So while I did do a lot of vert in this training block, I also did take some days to just do like runnable cruises from a Hardrock perspective, where like I didn't take my poles. You know, I still climbed a few thousand feet, but I put in like some cruiser trails where I could just like dip down to like very nice runnable paces, and I could hammer out, you know, like 15, 16, 18 miles in like from a Hardrock standpoint, a short amount of time. Yeah. So I still, and I also did a lot of like interval workouts along the river and bend, like in the early stages of prep, that were just like pretty, I mean, for Hardrock standards, fast. So yeah, I tried to keep some of that runnable stuff in, which I probably didn't do as much of last year, but a lot of the rest looked pretty similar. And I think it was just a few days ago, Jess, like back to my thought of like it feeling so different the second time around, Jess said to me, she was like, cause she witnesses my training, and she was like, and I didn't ask her, she just came out and said it. And she was like, you know what? I feel like last year you were like a lot more tired. Like you were a lot more beat up. And you just don't seem as like drained this year. And I was like, yeah, and she said that. And I was really happy to hear her say that, because I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I was like, everything just seems like it just feels, and not to like brag or boast or like, I'm also cautious to say it because we haven't run the race yet. Could go terrible. Yeah. But just to be honest about how I was feeling in training, I said, yeah, that's how it's felt. It's just felt easier this year.
That's so good.
Like, it hasn't felt like I've been like reaching for it. Where last year I was like, last year I think I was training well, but it just felt like a bit more of a reach.
Well, maybe some of these things are connected, you know, not having had to touch that deep energy well in a long ultra marathon for more than a year at this point, and you feeling a little bit more fresh, but also like it's kind of counterintuitive, because I know you've been building a house and you bought another house, and you've been dealing with, you know, your return from injury. So
yeah, I mean, definitely in the bend phase of training, there was some pretty tired days, because, you know, I'd sleep up near Mount Bachelor, wake up, go ski for a few hours, then go down to town, work on the house, then go out and do a run in the evening. And like, I really had to be careful with those runs in the evening after skiing and after working on the house, because I could go out there and just like bonk. Yeah. So I really had to like take calories with me and like watch it. But when we got to the springs, granted, yeah, we moved into a house. So that was kind of like a distraction, but to be honest, I didn't do very much with it. Like there's barely any furniture in it. I basically, you know, like we basically put some mats or mattresses down and just like turned it into like a training pad,
crash pad.
Yeah. And like, there isn't much in that house. Like, that's a project for after Hardrock. That house looks like we barely moved in, but it's 4 miles from my door to the top of Cameron Cone.
Yeah.
And Cameron Cone's like 10,700 feet and my house is like 6,700
So
feet.
yeah, it's going to be a nice little steep one out the back door.
I was like, that's all I need. I don't need like a couch. Like we don't even have a couch yet.
What a gift.
And it was just like a training pad. And yeah, it was fun.
Cool. Well, I was going to ask you about a couple of the key sessions, but I know you need to go, but super cool to look at what you've been up to recently and like the run that you did where you double tapped Pikes Peak and
the double crossing.
Yeah,
although I did it my own way. Like that's an FKT route in the Springs, but apparently
it's like
someone
42 miles with like 15,000 feet.
But I always sort of like, I don't know.
Big altitude.
I made some change. I went my own way. I did the back route normal, but I did the over route with some additional sort of like
extra
extra credit terrain.
Yeah. So we'll encourage people to go check it out because it seems like that was a crux session ahead of Hardrock.
Yeah, it was. I actually lost my stomach for like 10 miles in the middle of that session and then got it back miraculously. The bar camp caretakers rescued me. I came down. I was like all like hadn't been eating for a while because something happened with my stomach and I was just like couldn't eat. I could eat, but I was like, it's pointless to eat because my body's not doing anything like that. It's just getting angry. Yeah. So I stopped and then I went to bar camp and there's these new awesome caretakers there. Seth, who was a local kid from Manitou and his partner Maggie. And Seth was like, you got to try our bread because they changed the garlic bread. And he's like, you got to try our bread. Like Maggie kills it with the bread. So I kind of like cautiously had a piece of it because I'm like, I was a caretaker and I'm I didn't pay you guys for bread, but they were like, try the bread. So I tried the bread. And then I ended up like, I did some other things too, but I ate that bread and my run turned around. I got my stomach back and then I titled that run Magic Bread.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. But okay. Yeah. Now we have the context.
Then my stomach turned around and then I hammered. I should say hammered it home. It's funny when you move that slow in the mountains all day, you'll be running downhill and you'll finish your run and be like, I had to be crushing like 6:30 miles, 6 minutes, 6:30 miles at the end. And you look back, and you're like, I was running like 9s, 8s, and maybe a couple 7s. It's like kind of demoralizing. But no, I finished feeling really good.
What a great story. And it's so fun that the bar camp still lives on without Zach Miller.
I was going up. I was trying to go up Pikes at least like once a week, and I'd stop in most times and say hey to the caretakers, and that's always a good time. It's like it's a special place in my heart, and like a key part of my Hardrock training.
Heck yeah, buddy. So cool. All right, last thing, because I know you got to go. I've heard you're not going to run with pacers, so I'm sure the audience would be interested to hear about the calculus about being here at Hardrock and whether or not to experience it solo or with a team.
Yeah. I've never run with a pacer. All my hundreds have been overseas. I did. I had my crew guy run in with me the last like 5 miles or whatever of Tarawera, mostly as like just to like I was doing fine, but mostly just as like I really appreciated him, my buddy Joe, who I met at bar camp because he came out. He's from New Zealand, but he came to bar camp and met me. Then he crewed me, and I just really appreciated him doing that for me. And so kind of as a thank you to him, I just said we'd share those last miles. So I did use a pacer for that. But otherwise I haven't used pacers. I mean, you could ask my girlfriend, I'm a pretty solo guy. Yeah. Like I really like my nephew Everett is probably a bit like me in that he had this phase where he was always like, no, I do it by myself. Like he's really big. And that's kind of how I am with a lot of things. Like, and I also like, for me, moving in the mountains is a lot about finding my rhythm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's harder for me to run with other people. Oh. Like, because then I'm trying to move their rhythm and mentally maybe just having them around can get in my head. If we're like socially running, that's different. But like, yeah, I like to find my rhythm, and I don't know if a pacer might help me It might hurt me. I don't really know, but I'm just deciding to go without. And the other thing about going without is I've been told, I think Hardrock is an awesome race, and it'd be cool if more people would get to experience it. And I've been told that Hardrock could have more runners if we would do away with pacers.
Seems like
because with the permitting, I think the pacers is included as part of it. And I would love for more people to experience Hardrock. Now, I understand the pacing is like kind of a cool cultural aspect of it. And especially for those, 60 plus or 65 plus runners that get the pacer the whole way. Yeah. I'm pretty stoked on people that age going out and tackling something like this. But for the majority of us, I don't know. I think if you put me in charge and said we can either let more people into the race and have no pacers, or we can have less people in the race, but they can bring pacers, I think I would pretty quickly vote more people in the race. No, it's pacers. Almost
in line with the postgraduate 100-mile philosophy.
Yeah, I guess.
The run
and
has.
I understand there's like a cool cultural aspect of having pacers, and a cool way for people to be involved in the race. But I also think it would just be like, there's so many people who would kill to run this race and try year after year to get in and don't. And if we could let more people in by not having pacers, like I think it's really cool.
Interesting. And I do think this is maybe going to be more and more of a conversation in years to come. And I wonder, like, if you polled a lot of the people who were competing for top 10 spots at Western States, whether they would report something similar to what you just described of like when they arrived at the point when they picked up their pacer, whether it actually helped improve their performance or made them adjust, their own rhythm or their own strategy based on the energy of somebody else. Like, it's not necessarily totally clear that it is an advantage, right?
We've been talking about because my buddies that have all been camping out in Cunningham, and I've been talking about with my buddy Jeff, and I'm like, I don't know that pacer is a right word for the job. Like, it's not really I grew up running track. It's like a pacer sets the pace, and I think for some people in an ultra, they do that. But for the most of us, I was like, I think it's not really so much a pacer. It's more of a vibes companion. Like, it's more of just somebody to bring good vibes and make sure you don't fall off a cliff and remind you to eat, Like, if I was going to bring a pacer, I did talk about who I would bring if I brought a pacer. And basically, the person I was like my brain most wanted to bring as a pacer is my buddy Chris Jones from Bend. Because like Chris and I aren't even like, we haven't Chris was a pro cyclist. He's a big runner now. He dukes it out with Max King and the Ski-Mo stuff. Very impressive endurance athlete. And I don't know what it is about Chris, but it's like every day I bump into him on like the ski hill or on the trail and we end up running or skiing together. It's like the best run ever. Yeah. Like, he is just like the ultimate vibes companion.
Vibes guy.
Yeah.
All right.
So hopefully Chris listens to this. I really appreciate his energy.
It's a good lesson for all the pacers out there, myself included. I'm going to be pacing on Friday night.
But it's like, I don't think
gotta be the vibes guy out there.
Yeah. But I don't know that you don't want to force it. It's just who you are. It's just who Chris is. Vibes with like who I am. And it's just, I was like, he'd be the perfect pacer. But yeah, I think Chris might be over in Girona or something right now, but yeah.
All right. Well, Zach, thanks for, all the entertainment in this conversation. It's great to have you in studio and awesome to see you here at Hardrock. I appreciate all the time. Good luck on Friday.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks very much.